in Nigeria, President Bola Tinubu has launched the Expatriate Employment Levy to close wage gaps between expatriates and the Nigerian labor force. The EEL also mandates firms to pay levies for hiring expatriates and provides guidelines on the employment of Nigerians in foreign-owned companies. President Tinubu said the policy, which was initiated to oversee expatriate employment in the country, should not become a hindrance to foreign investment. The initiative, according to the EEL handbook, aims to diminish reliance on foreign skills and encourage companies to prioritize the hiring of Nigerians by supporting the development of the local workforce. Director, Legal, Regulatory and Tax at the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, NECA, Thompson Akpabio, joins us now to speak to us on how it will shape the job market and the economy. Good to have you with us on Newsday. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start with your thoughts, on the Expatriate Employment Levy, launched by the federal government. What do you make of it?
Basically, one of the first things that comes to my mind is the appropriateness. The appropriateness of the EEL and then the legality of it. Yeah, the focus is on expatriates and all of that, knowledge gaps. But one of the things that we have in this climb is that we've had several laws that are still very much in existence. We have our local content law, and it's covering the field. And if that is not enough, then there should be a way to review it. Now, we're coming up in the morning, and the first thing we are seeing is the launch of a handbook. And if we're going to discuss the legality of it and the appropriateness. So let me take it one after the other. Now, taking on it from the legality of it, number one, for you to impose a tax, a law, a levy in Nigeria, it has to pass through the National Assembly. And this is provided for in our Constitution, specifically Section 59 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as amended. And there is no way, I stand to be corrected, that such piece of document will go through the National Assembly and to come out as a guideline or a handbook. It would have passed through the legislative process, right? Then public hearing, then it will now be agreed upon before the president will assent to it, and not a handbook. So that's number one. Secondly, it being a handbook cannot override the clear provisions of our existing laws, especially the Constitution of Nigeria. Because if the Constitution has provided for a process, then the process should be followed. And when the process has not been followed, it has defeated the purpose of that law. Thus, the legality of that piece of document is in question. So if we present that to any court, it's as good as there's nothing before us. And if there's nothing before us, then we can't go further. So that is the foundation. So the foundation already is faulty. Because if we now look at Section 1 of the Constitution of Nigeria, it goes to the extent that the Nigerian Constitution is supreme and superior to every other law or every other legislation or enactment or whatever name you wish to call it. So these have not followed that process, so it's off. Now, come to the appropriateness. Is it the appropriate time that we should be coming up with such a levy? We have the Presidential Tax Committee headed by tax experts that are trying to harmonize taxes and levies in Nigeria. And we are coming up to introduce this other one. Is this the appropriate time for it to be done? If we now look at the document itself, it talks about government-mandated contribution. So the timing is wrong because the content of that piece of document does not agree with us in this country. Why do I say so? The intent in terms of reducing the number of expatriates are things that can easily be addressed. We have the local content law in Nigeria, and to the best of our knowledge, it's still enforced. So is this handbook overriding the clear provisions of the local content law? I think not. We have several other legislations in Nigeria. We have the ITF Act, Industrial Training Fund Act, 1971, 2011. Is this handbook overriding it? I think not. Still on the appropriateness, we are in an era that our borders is being open to foreigners, let me use that word respectfully in parentheses, because we have this free trade, AfCFTA, and they'll be coming in, free movement of goods and persons, and they'll be coming in to transact business in all sectors of Nigeria. So what will happen if we now say, oh, for them coming in, we are raising up a barrier to prevent them coming in to do business? Now on the appropriateness, we have SEPA, and then it's being charged at $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. And now we're having a mandated levy, which takes us to $10,000 and $15,000 for the directors. The question now is this in addition to it? Or is it that the act is being repealed or the handbook have increased the amount? $10,000 with the current exchange rate in Nigeria, you know what that means?
It's a lot of money.
$10,000 or $15,000. So you can imagine companies bleeding, trying to stay afloat. Companies are not just looking at making profit anymore. They're actually trying to stay afloat currently in Nigeria. And because they're trying to stay afloat, you are imposing more burden on them. The books are out. The records are out. Recently, we have the various companies giving us their accounts, and the reports are out there. Several of them making losses. And several of them are even looking at leaving the shores of Nigeria. So what are we talking about? So in terms of the appropriateness, I think we should have a rethink of this. In terms of the legality, the laws are clear on this.
Well, thank you for making that very crystal clear and breaking it down, the pros and the cons. Well, more of the cons than the pros, but let's speak a little bit of the pros if everything else is ironed out. It's supposed to help our job market in some kind of way, but we know as well that there are bottlenecks to these things, and it could be a bit of an administrative block. So I guess what I'm asking is, how is it going to help at all our job market and our economy?
Please don't forget that we equally have Nigerians that are expatriates.
Right.
Some of which are in other climes. So if we come up with this, and those climes also come up with the similar laws in their own climes, what happens? We're back to square one. And even you might even go below square one, because the climes that there are probably more well structured, and things are working, or systems are working, and things are moving. So they now put it down there and I say, okay, Nigerians, you've come up with this. We too equally have a right to come up with this. And so now we lose out. 2, look at the areas of knowledge transfer. Look at the areas of technological impacts. If it will not affect this country, then why we should stop looking for foreign direct investment? I'm aware that the governments, state and federal, are looking for foreign direct investment. So why call them in? And in the process of coming in, there's a hurdle, which was never explained to them. It's going to kill the whole system. The other bit is that, which a lot of people do not know, is that those foreigners that were invited to come and invest in Nigeria will equally not take us truly or wholly on our words. What do I mean? I'm coming to invest in Nigeria. So while I'm coming to invest in Nigeria, definitely I should have a friend in Nigeria. I should have my embassy in Nigeria. And I simply put a call or send an email. What is this? And then they take time to explain to me. And the phone I tell them, oh, while you are coming, get ready for ABC. Mm-hmm. Right. The embassy now say, oh, be prepared for X, Y, Z. And because of that, people develop cold feet. So what happened to our drive to get the foreign direct investments? What happened to our drive to get all the knowledge transfers that we want? Because we do need each other in this business.
Can I just interrupt you for a moment there? The president attempted, to defend their drive for to seek for foreign direct investment by saying that the scheme should not be used as an impediment to discourage foreign investors, whatever that means. I don't know, is there a way we can explain that contradiction? On one hand, you don't want the expatriates coming in. On the other hand, you don't want it to be an impediment to discourage them. Can you help me make that make sense?
I think it would be more a question that you should be asking them in government. Because in your own words, which I totally agree, there's a contradiction there. Is it the way it works in policy making and implementation are two different things. The policy makers sit down there, they develop the policies, which we believe there should be a strategic section, a strategic thinking, so that those policies work seamlessly, right? And then the implementation of it is a different ball game, because those that are implementing might not know the minds of the drafters or those that develop the policies. And so what happens at the end of it all? We have issues. So if you are telling us it will not be used to discourage, and already some of them are being discouraged, then they better not come. Because the way the economy is right now, I repeat, businesses are struggling to stay afloat. Not the profit. Not the profit. They are struggling to stay afloat. Let us just exist first and survive the process, maybe for the next few months or whichever period of time. Let's say the economy bouncing back.
Well, one part of the levy that got my eyebrows raised was that it would address the salary gaps between locals and foreigners. Do you know anything more about that? Is this something that's a really big issue and that you think needs to be addressed?
When you look at the issue of salaries, there are certain things that determine salaries. Apart from qualifications, apart from experience, expertise on the job, apart from the levels in which a person is, what was negotiated at the point of entry is key. So I'm coming into a job and I know I have a master's or I have a doctorate, and I'll be able to make a look around and say, okay, for this level, I think I should be earning XY amount. So I will negotiate that amount. So it doesn't matter if you are coming in as an expatriate or a local, you could be able to negotiate. You see, the function of salary payment in the private sector is not like the government. The government could maybe print money respectfully, okay, get subvention. But for those of us in the private sector, we work for our money. We don't produce, we don't sell, we don't raise revenue, we don't raise income. So where do we make the payment? People would have agreed on time. So salary is a function of agreement. And it's agreement between the parties. And the parties are the actors in the workplace, which in this case is the employer and the employee.
Now, we understand, what the government is trying to do. They're trying to boost our local workforce, provide more jobs for Nigerian graduates. But of course, with this scheme, which, putting it mildly, sounds a bit controversial, I'm wondering what other advice would you have for the government, on how to boost our local workforce, and provide jobs for Nigerian graduates?
You see, there's an area of job that a lot of people have not really been taken to seriously in this country. And skill is that area. Not just skill, but specialized skills. Now, at NECA, we came up looking at what are those skills gap that we have, that we should be addressed in Nigeria. And there were several of them. Okay? And in terms of those skills being there, they need to train and retrain. That's one. Two, in terms of the job, government should create an enabling environment. Let the businesses survive. Currently, businesses are like quasi-governments. Quasi-government in the sense that they source for their own forex, trying to make ends meet. They source for their raw materials. They handle their electricity, power, roads, light, water, everything, including security. So when those things are not in place, where will you get the jobs? Where those things are not in place, how would companies be in place? Now, between last year and this year, we've had over 10,000 companies folding up. Over 10,000 companies. And so we shouldn't just look at the number 10,000 companies. Now let's look at the effects of that 10,000 companies. The 10,000 companies folds up, and then it has his workforce, right? And the workforce, maybe we'll give another figure. Maybe let's just put it at 50,000 workforce. For the 10,000, which definitely is more than that. What are the multiplier effects on both the dependents, their spouse, the children, and then the chain reaction which that actually causes? The school fees, the house rent, people that are depending on them, the medical condition, the chain reaction is endless. So create an enabling environment for businesses to survive and to thrive. Lower some of those expectations and create policies that will ensure businesses not just survive, but they remain in business. Focus on areas of skill development, especially in this climate. We need a whole lot of that. Engage with the private sector. When I mean engage with the private sector, I'm not talking about one person that has a business. The umbrella body of the private sector, which is the organized private sector. It comprises of Nekaman, Nasimanasi, and Nasme. We engage, we sit down and say, we are looking at this line of business. We're trying to create more jobs. What should we do? What should be the bottleneck? Because we are in the trenches, we are in the field, we are the practitioners. So we know those areas that are of concern. But they might not know because they're not wearing the shoes.
So what is the way forward now, for employers of labor, especially those who need the services of these expatriates? Do they ignore this new scheme? Do they seek legal interpretation, petition the National Assembly? What is the next move?
Engagement. Engagement. We need to engage more. That's what we're going to do. Further engagement. What as to the implementation of the workability of this scheme? Advocacy. Yes, you use another term, legal interpretation. That's also an option. That's equally an option. Because the truth of the matter is that those skills and those expatriates will always be needed one way or the other. You cannot completely wish them off the shores of Nigeria. No. Some of them actually invest their money. Some of them have panel status. In some of them, those areas, it's difficult to see Nigerians that have those skills. And that was one of the reasons that the local content law came into existence. So options are on the table, several others.
But the guideline also talked about giving enough time, for the transfer of the skills. I really don't know what that means. I guess we still need a lot more interpretation of what these guidelines, mean or what they're meant to achieve, But it talks about giving enough time for the transfer of those skills to Nigerians. Does that offer some form of reassurance?
The handbook, not even a guideline, cannot supersede clear provisions of the law. I repeat. And as far as it cannot supersede clear provisions of the law, starting from the Constitution of Nigeria, and then you now move down to the local content law, then the handbook doesn't have a legal base to stand on.
Well, do you have any more information about this levy that maybe some people might find positive? I know we've harped quite a bit about the downsides of this, but there's the discussion about, keeping jobs specifically for Nigerians and protecting individuals who are locals against foreigners.
We are not against keeping jobs for the locals. And if we look at the Local Content Act, it clearly provides for all of those in terms of the timelines, in terms of understudying, the qualifications, and all of that. What has been the effect of, or if any at all, monitoring to ensure there is that level of compliance and up to date? So those are things, there are a whole lot of things to talk about. So we are ready and willing to sit down on the table and then we'll judge or we'll discuss and come and say, this is not the way it should be. We think so. Rather, let's look at it this way so that it's for the good of us.
I'm even wondering, shouldn't there have been some form of dialogue even before they came out with this handbook?
Well, we actually saw it for the first time, probably yesterday, just like every other person. And I saw it on the social media. So There was none.
Well, Ms. Barrister Thompson Akpabio, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon and for this discussion.
Thank you for having me.